All right, welcome in everybody to another edition of a Bulls video mailbag. We're on episode 6, and as always, thank you for the great questions. Our first question comes from my man at 𝗻𝗍. By the way, if you think I have good musical taste, check out this dude, man. He made me a playlist once. 𝗻𝗍 asks, it's been reported that the Bulls turned down a first-round pick for Lonzo Ball because they did not want to take back bad money. Why do you think that was a deal breaker? The only thing I can think of is that 𝗗𝗄𝗃 wants to rebuild this thing on the fly as he did in 2021. Leave it to the Bulls to become the newsmakers 1 week after the trade deadline. There's been quite a bit of speculation about what the Bulls were offered. Our guy John Hollinger over The Athletic did report that the Bulls were offered a first-round pick and a long-term deal for Lonzo Ball. I many times reported that the Bulls were offered draft capital along with bad long-term money for Lonzo Ball, and as we know, Lonzo Ball signed a 2-year extension. First of all, we're not sure this was a deal breaker, and also I heard there was quite a few iterations of these conversations with various teams. One team that I know was involved was the Memphis Grizzlies, and I do think that the Bulls were also asked for some draft capital back. The Bulls have downplayed the severity of those talks. Again, at this point, you don't know what's true, what's not. What I do know is that the Bulls, if they did turn down an offer from the Memphis Grizzlies, that would have been probably a late first-round pick, right? And if they were asked to give a second-round pick back, that's only moving up a little bit in the draft order, because the Bulls are probably going to have a high second-round pick, plus that first-round pick would be guaranteed money. The second-round pick, it would still be guaranteed money, but not the same length of deal. Wouldn't be a rookie scale contract. So, you know, obviously, the person the Memphis Grizzlies traded was Marcus Smart. He makes double what Lonzo Ball makes. So you ask yourself, is it worth moving up a few slots in the draft to double the money that you re-signed Lonzo Ball at? I can also tell you that Lonzo Ball is incredibly valued within this organization, not only by the front office, but by his coaches and teammates as kind of an inspiration for his comeback and obviously the ultimate connecting piece. So the Bulls obviously prioritize bringing that back. As far as that last point, I don't see this being kind of a rebuild on the fly summer for the Bulls. I do not see them trying to transform this team with big free agent signings or sign-in trades as they did in 2021 with 𝗻𝗪 DeRozan, 𝗬😄 𝗃, and Lonzo Ball all coming here. I think this is going to be a multi-tiered, multi-year rebuild centered on the draft. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, question number 2 comes from at 𝗻𝗵𝗋. There's still no clear number 1 on this team unless we get lucky and win the lottery in the draft or 𝗻𝗪 𝗂𝒃 develops into a star. Is there a possibility that we'll trade for a star this offseason? I kind of answered that a little bit at the tail end of the last question. Again, I do see this rebuild kind of taking a multi-year approach and being centered on draft picks. The Bulls obviously reclaimed not only their 2025 first-round pick in the in the trade of Zach LaVine. They had lost the control of that pick in the sign-and-trade acquisition of 𝗻𝗪 DeRozan, given the Spurs that first-round pick with top 10 protections. Now Bulls now have that back. And you could say, well, they could have kept that first-round pick by just being bad the rest of the season, and the protections just would have shifted to the 2026 draft, and they would have been top 8 protected. Now the Bulls have control of all their first-round picks moving forward. So look, it's going to be contingent on management and the scouting staff to start hitting on every draft pick. That's what's going to help pull the Bulls out of this mediocrity stage that they're in. Obviously, you look for opportunity in the trade market, and maybe the right one comes along and you accelerate that process. But I don't see the Bulls having a lot of high-profile draft capital after trading away 𝗻𝗪 DeRozan, 𝗬𝗪 𝗃, and Zach LaVine. So I do think this is going to be a longer rebuild situation than what you saw when 𝗗𝗄𝗃 𝗃 first took over and transformed the team in about 18 months, culminating with that August 2021 period where they acquired 𝗻𝗪 DeRozan, 𝗬𝗪 𝗃, and Lonzo Ball, all with aggressive moves. I see this being a slower process, again, centered on the draft. Let's go to question number 3. It comes from yet another Bulls podcast at another Bulls pod. Just what we need, another Bulls podcast. Out of Nikola Vucevic, Coby White, and Ayo Dosunmu, who do you expect to be on this team the least by the start of next season? This is a great question. First of all, I think I should raise the possibility that there's a very, very real chance that all three of these players will be on the roster next season. Again, I think you saw around the trade deadline that it is difficult for this team to find takers for some of their players, whether that's from asking price or lack of interest. I'm not sure. I think it'd be a combination of both. So there is a real chance that all three of these players will be here next year. But if you're asking me to pick one, it's really close between Nikola Vucevic and Coby White. Nikola Vucevic, obviously, because there were quite a few conversations leading up to this trade deadline, most notably with the Golden State Warriors. Do the Bulls revisit that this offseason? But as far as Coby White, I've been making this point for a while. I mean, obviously the Bulls value him immensely internally, but he is also up for an extension, as is Ayo Dosunmu after next season. And I personally think it will be tough for the Bulls to re-sign both. Do you get out in front of that and try to make a proactive move this summer by trading away a person who is obviously having another good season and can, really fit into most any team's offensive style because of his catch and shoot ability and his ability to get downhill? We'll have to see. So I would put it between those two, Nikola Vucevic and Coby White, while also ruling out or making sure there's still the possibility all three could be back. Did I cover all bases? I think I covered it right there. And our last question comes from Rob Nelson at @Blitz_Dragon. What person in their right mind would prefer winter freezing temperatures over summer sweltering temperatures? Also, how realistically do you see Giannis coming here in the offseason, and how well would he fit? All right, my man Rob picked up on my well-documented Twitter stance that I like winter better than summer. You have to first understand that I don't have a right mind, so let's start with that premise. And secondly, I've just always preferred cold temperatures. I do not do humidity well. I love winter. Plus, you got to kind of earn it in winter. You got to, anyone can go outside in summer, but, you can go outside in winter and go for a run. You got to kind of earn it, all right? But again, I don't have a right mind. Speaking of not having a right mind, Rob, how do you see Giannis coming here this offseason? What are the Bulls trading for to get Giannis Antetokounmpo? I don't see that possibility. I know Giannis has teased this multiple times over the years and said that, obviously the specter of Jordan is something that interests him and intrigues him, but I do not see the Bulls owning the draft capital to land such a star. Obviously Milwaukee's run appears to be ending perhaps after this season, so maybe Giannis, who has been incredibly loyal to that market, at some point makes some noise about being elsewhere, but I don't see a pathway for him coming to the Bulls. If he were to somehow land here, how well would he fit? Again, who has the not right mind here? He'd fit with any team. He's the third best player in the world, or top 3 player in the world. So he would fit anywhere, including with the Bulls. I just don't see him in a Bulls uniform next season. But we'll be monitoring it as usual. And thank you to everyone again for another great week of questions. We will catch you next week on the Bulls Video Mailbag.